At times a tumultuous relationship. The Pakistanis have believed through the years that Americans have been unreliable partners. We have not followed through on weapons deals. At times the Pakistanis believe we have pushed them in directions that are not in their national interest. And of course Americans have had concerns with the Pakistanis now. Just pulling back from the events of this week, even this month, give us, if you will, your best read on U.S.-Pakistani relations right now. Are we in a better place today than we were, say, 5-10 years ago?
Definitely. This is the best relationship Pakistan had with the U.S. in almost 2 decades. But let me just give you a brief history. Pakistan joined, U.S. and Pakistan got together against the Soviets when they invaded Afghanistan. And so Pakistan trained militants to fight jihad. They were called Mujahideen, who fought against the Soviets. And so these groups came and they operated from Pakistan in the 80s. Come 1989, Soviets retreat from Afghanistan, the US packs up and leaves. And in 91, we were slapped with sanctions, Pressler sanctions. So that was a shock because Pakistan had, by this time, 4 million Afghan refugees. We were left with these militant groups, and sectarian terrorism started in Pakistan. Come 9/11, we again joined the US. And I remember George Bush saying that, look, this time it will be different. We are not going to abandon you. Because Pakistanis were skeptical. We had been abandoned. This time again, we joined and I opposed it, and I'll tell you why I opposed Pakistan joining the US. Because we had trained these mujahideen, these groups, to do jihad against foreign occupation in Afghanistan. Now, when the Americans turned up in Afghanistan, how are we going to explain to them that now it's no longer jihad, it's terrorism? And so, when Pakistan joined the US, the same groups turned against Pakistan. And the fundamental mistake Pakistan's leadership made at the time is that they tried to tell the US, don't worry, we'll be able to deal with it. They couldn't deal with it. I mean, there were suicide bombings going on in Pakistan. Our GHQ was attacked, our army, our commandos, our ISI. At one point, we actually thought we were going down. And so, US kept putting pressure on Pakistan to help them more. Pakistan could not deliver more. There were 150,000 NATO troops, and if they couldn't win in Afghanistan, how was Pakistan going to help them? And so we were then accused of playing a double game because we couldn't deliver. There were 50 different groups operating in Pakistan, militant groups. And so this mistrust began. Now our relationship is based on truth and trust. We are partners in peace now. And so there's trust, and that's how the relationship should have been. If I was the Prime Minister, I would have said, look, Mr. Bush, we cannot deliver. We have these groups trained, and how are we going to, the moment we join them, we lose leverage on them, and they'll turn against us. So I think that's the mistake where our leadership made.
And what advice have you given President Trump about Afghanistan, a war that many Americans have grown tired of 18 years later?
You know, I mean, I kept opposing. I kept saying there is no military solution only because you only have to know the history of Afghanistan. I mean, the British as a superpower went in 3 times, failed. Soviets killed 1 million Afghans in the 80s, failed. And how you knew that this was going to be a war that is just would not have achieved any results. Someone should ask, I mean, if I was an American, I would ask that $1.5 trillion at least have been spent in Afghanistan. What have we achieved in this? And then I hear some people saying that, actually, no, we should sort of keep the military or keep this going. This will go on for another 19 years. The taxpayer in U.S. is going to keep pouring in money in there. While the U.S. was pouring money in Afghanistan in this futile war, the Chinese were developing first world infrastructure, and you just have to go to China to see the way their infrastructure is. And I'm in New York, and and I'm watching the the car bumping around here.
Okay.
That money
it's
was wasted.
You know, you do
That
not
money
sound
was wasted.
You do not sound right now like a prime minister from Pakistan. You sound like a voter from the Bronx who would complain about the infrastructure, our money being spent on wars in Afghanistan instead of on fixing LaGuardia and the other infrastructure there and across America. Mr. Prime Minister, thank you so much for being with us.
Imran Khan, thank you
We
very
greatly
much.
appreciate it.